All right, Lindsay, our time is almost up. Uh, so what I want to do is, I know we talked about a lot of things today, so I want to summarize a little bit some of the key points that we discussed as well, just to make sure we're all on the same page before we leave. I also want to assign one of our first homework assignments for you to kind of take home. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing that we talked about today, just to remind us, was the therapy expectations, kind of how CBT works and the therapeutic relationship. And one of the bigger things we talked about is called collaborative empiricism. You remember that a little bit? And so we talked about working together. We're going to generate hypotheses and kind of test them. Like, I wonder what if we thought this way or behaved differently, would that make a difference? How we can provide feedback, set goals with each other, and homework, which we'll assign today. And just overall knowing that with CBT there's a lot of challenging of thoughts and behaviors, and sometimes not always doesn't have to be this way, but sometimes working with panic or anxiety, sometimes even though we're coming for therapy to get better, there may be moments where we have increased distress, but then eventually it becomes reduced over time as well. The other thing too, which I think you had a pretty good grasp on, was you talked a little bit about the cognitive model. And we also addressed that with the psychoeducation of panic disorder and agoraphobia. We talked about the triggering events, like what starts these events getting us aroused, what our automatic thoughts are or images that we have, what are our emotions or physiological arousal, which is largely anxiety related, and then what are those behaviors that we do, and even some of the consequences, whether they're real or perceived. Do you have any questions about that? Does that kind of fit what we discussed today?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, good. So what I want to do, we just got a couple more minutes, is discuss our homework assignment for today. All right. I know we've been talking about them, and now we kind of get one of our first ones to do. All right. And it's relatively simple, and it kind of follows along what we've been talking about. Right. If you recall, lately we've been talking about the importance of assessment, where we kind of sit down and we talked about the panic anxiety scale. We also talked about the agoraphobia scale. Part of too as well in CBT, and especially when we talk about panic attacks and agoraphobia, is we actually kind of want to actually track our symptoms between sessions, right? You only see me for about 50 to 60 minutes, but obviously a good portion of your life takes place in between. And it's one thing that come to therapy and talk about those symptoms when we reflect on the past, which is still very helpful, and you've done a great job with that. But it's another thing where in the moment or soon after the moment, where you can write down how you're feeling or thinking, etc. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so I'm not just going to send you out the door, just saying, here you go, give it a shot, but I kind of want to walk you through one. You notice that it kind of, everything's kind of there for you to fill out a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
So I think just to give an example to start off, we'll use one that we're already familiar with. We've been talking a lot about a relatively more recent one about being in the classroom and getting pretty anxious and scared. So there's a spot here that says the date. The date was, what was this?
2 days ago.
Okay, about 2 days ago, so I'll just put down the date here. And I know it was in class. Doesn't have to be exact, but do you have a general idea of what time it began? The panic symptoms or thoughts?
It was in the middle of my class. I mean, I believe it was at the very beginning of the class.
Okay. What time does class start about?
7.
7, okay. In the evening?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So about 7, but it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's helpful at least get a general idea what time it's happening during the day. And then there's a spot here for triggers. Do you remember what was being said or done that kind of started this?
Well, the professor was talking about some assignments that were due and an upcoming midterm.
Okay. So I'm just going to write down assignments. Okay. Okay. Midterm. So just when they starts talking about what the big assignments are due, that's when, yeah, it started happening, right?
Yeah.
Was this expected or unexpected in the moment?
Well, actually, it was very unexpected.
Okay. I know now it seems like looking back, but it seems like in the moment, though, that you didn't see that coming at all. It was very surprising. And again, we've used a scale before earlier. This is a maximum fear scale, like in the moment. At its worst moment, all right, we're going to talk about the symptoms in a second. From 0 to 10, none to extreme. Where would you put it?
Probably rank it an 8.
Okay. So what I'm going to do here is just going to check off an 8 like that, right?
Okay.
I know it's a relatively subjective scale. What's important is what it is to you.
Okay.
So when we do a bunch of these over time, we can compare what it means to Lindsay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now again, obviously you won't be doing this in the middle of the panic attack, but you would have this available afterwards. Is what we want to do here is just check off the symptoms of the particular panic attack. So, did you have chest pains or discomfort?
Yes.
Yes, right. Did you have any sweating?
Yes.
Yes. Heart racing?
Yes.
Yeah. Nausea?
No.
No nausea. Shortness of breath?
Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah. This particular one, did you feel dizzy in this one?
No.
Okay.
No, it was more the shortness of breath.
Okay.
Because
So sometimes we've talked about dizziness, but in this
Yeah.
particular one, I remember too, I didn't recall you saying feeling dizzy. How about the shaking or trembling?
Yeah,
The hands?
definitely.
Definitely, okay. Chills, not so much chills, but you had hot
Yeah,
flashes?
my body just kept getting warm.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're talking about that one as well. Numbness or tingling?
No.
Did you have feelings of unreality?
No.
But maybe it says feelings of choking, but feelings of having difficulty breathing?
Yeah, I think it was just because of my labored breathing.
Okay.
I just my throat kind of felt closed off.
And did you have any fears of dying?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Knew
I
the
thought
answer
I
to
was
that
having
one.
a heart attack.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this one here too. Did you have any fears of losing control or going insane? Not the insane part, but
I definitely felt like I was losing control.
okay. And so the other part here is, now there's not too much space, and that's okay. You just write down some quick thoughts on these. Do you recall what your thoughts were initially when these panic attacks started?
Well,
Think back when you were in the classroom and he was telling you, oh, you
I
got
just
these
thought I was
midterms
gonna-
and finals coming.
I thought I was gonna fail the class. I
Right.
thought I was gonna fail the midterm, or
Okay.
maybe not get the assignment in on time.
So what I'm going to do here is just write fail class. Again, when you do these on your own, you can put in as much as you want, right?
Okay.
And then, because these are kind of two different scenarios, the fail the class, eventually, what did you do in the classroom for the behavior?
Well, I ended up leaving the classroom.
That's it, just leave classroom, right? Okay. Now, you left the classroom, and I know you had another series of thoughts. Now you're leaving the classroom, going to the car. What were those other thoughts that you were having?
Well, I just felt like I was getting more and more anxious. My
Mhm.
panic attack was like I thought that I was gonna have a full blown panic
Right.
attack because I started to feel my chest getting
Mhm.
tight, and so I got in the car and just felt like I needed to leave. I thought I was gonna have a heart attack.
Right. So you're thinking, shoot, I'm having a heart attack, right?
Yeah.
Because it was really reaching its peak at that point. So I just wrote down here for thoughts, having heart attack, maybe might die. Put die question mark there.
Mm-hmm.
And then what did you do after you're in your car? Oh my God, heart attack, I'm going to die. What did you do after that?
I ended up unexpectedly going to the hospital.
Going to the hospital. So I went to hospital. So I don't know if you noticed too, earlier when we talked about this scenario when we first did our intake, you were kind of anxious and really revved up, right? And I know you're a little bit anxious now, but I notice a little bit more relaxed. So you notice sometimes just talking about these events can be a little bit helpful as well.
Yeah.
And so, again, this isn't in the moment. This is just one example. I'll let you take this home,
Okay.
right, to practice this. And I got a bunch of copies of these I can give them to you. I'll probably give you more than you need. So if I give you a bunch, don't worry.
Okay.
You may have no panic attacks this week.
That would be great.
Yes. Or you might realistically maybe have a couple of them.
Okay.
And so you carry this on your person however you think is best. It can either be right after. The sooner the better, but I know you got to kind of relax and collect yourself and just do what I just did there. It only takes a few minutes.
Okay.
To fill that out the best you can.
Okay.
If you have any questions too when you're filling this out, like, oh, we didn't talk, just write, like, ask, Adam, what about the follow-up on this particular, how to do this or something like that. And what we do when we come back, and this is true for all homework assignments, is when we come back for next week, one of the first things we will do is review your homework assignments. So do your best to kind of complete it. Even if it's only partially done, that's okay. And I'll assure you when we come back next week, we'll go through, no matter whether you have 1, 2, or 3, we'll go through them and process that, okay?
Okay.
And that information will be very helpful for me and for us to eventually developing some more specific treatment goals and what type of interventions we're going to use.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
It does. It makes sense.
Do you have any other, as you look at this homework assignment and look at your therapy notes, do you have any other questions for me about today's session to clarify anything before we go?
No, I mean, everything that you've explained really does make a lot of sense.
Great. And as you know, of course, in the future you can always ask questions to clarify. But I think today's session was pretty clear. How do you feel about overall of today's session from when you came in a few sessions ago and where we are now? Just looking ahead.
Just I feel hopeful. I mean,
Okay.
I just feel like things are definitely. I have a chance of really getting better.
Good. And I'm feeling hopeful too. You seem to be understanding this stuff pretty well, and I'm pretty optimistic that we can really work through this and kind of help you feel a little bit better.
Good.
Okay. Just one last thing. I don't do this all the time, but sometimes I just like to check in with clients and kind of see. I know overall today's session's feeling good, but do you have any feedback or any other questions before moving on for next week?
No.
Okay, good. I just wanted to clarify that. You'll find as we move forward in therapy, sometimes there might be some constructive feedback you might have for me, like do a little bit more of this, a little less of that, or I find this helpful, this not as much helpful. I just wanted to clarify and put that out there. You're more than welcome to provide feedback, because the more you tell me how things are going, the more we can adapt together and make changes to kind of be even more efficient as we go through therapy.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
It does.
All right. So we got the homework assignment. We seem good to go, and I'll see you next week. Okay?
All right. Great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.